from the Orient somewhere, usually in a candy form of some kind. It was never smoked. None of this was smoked. It was all oral. And hashish was exceedingly rarely used. You hear almost no stories about it. In Europe, there's some intellectuals and bohemians who take it, some artists, not in the United States. So that is what there is. But where does marijuana come from then? Well, and I would like to talk about that actually, because we have some new historical results on that. Marijuana is a word of Mexican origin. It first appears in Mexico in the mid-1800s, and it refers specifically to cigarettes of leaf, of marijuana leaf, cannabis leaf. This was a new way of using it, at least from the standpoint of most Europeans. When did it first come to public attention? Well, I can tell you, we spent a lot of time trying to research this, and if I can get down to the overhead projector there. Overhead projector. Very, very hard to find anything before World War I. It really doesn't become popularized until the 1920s. However, early on, there are literally a handful of articles that do mention it, beginning, of course, in Mexico. Just this last year, thanks to Andrew Garrett's wonderful Reefer Madness Museum, which is online, we located what appears to be, what is now, anyhow, the first known newspaper reference to marijuana, which turned out to be, for a long time we thought it was a pharmacy article from 1905. But it turns out that even before that, right here in San Francisco Call, a newspaper article appeared as follows.
What's the date on it?
I will tell you in a second, because everything is all in there. There you go, 1897, October 14th. All right, well, all right. October 14th, 1897.
Ravishing dreams.
Yes. Okay. And this is actually part of a larger feature page in the Southwestern Travel article. But things you might see in the Southwest, and one of them is this little piece. Brings ravishing dreams of bliss in southern Arizona. The jail and prison officials have their hands full trying to prevent the smuggling into their institution of the seductive marijuana. This is a kind of local weed, more powerful than opium. It is a dangerous thing to initiated to handle, but those who know its users say it produces more ravishing dreams than opium. And it's Mexicans who are smuggling it into jail in southern Arizona. This article gets reprinted in a few other newspapers around the country. Hardly noticed. Interesting that the early spelling is marijuana. In fact, you will find that the early spellings there's a whole bunch of early spellings. All of these things here appear. Marijuana was the standard word in Mexico from what I can figure out. It's the J spelling I have not found before 1923. I think it was invented in the United States, pretend Spanish or something like that. Okay. All right. Now, then you'll hear what I have to say, but you can read that. Now let me point out. In Mexico, marijuana had a very bad reputation. It was used by prisoners, criminals, and soldiers. And it was actually the use by soldiers that first brought it into the United States. During the 1910s, from 1910 to 1920, there was revolution going on in Mexico. There was a lot of disorders. There were some Mexican immigrants into the United States. And there were some incidents which brought marijuana into contact with Americans. And here is the first genuine Reefer Madness story from the El Paso Herald the day after New Year's, 1913. A madman, Mexican, comes into town, runs amok, kills a couple of people until he's finally shot by the police. Crazed by a weed, man murders. And you will notice that it says, crazed by continual use of the drug. Apparently, the story was, here was somebody who was known to smoke marijuana a lot. He, shot up the town, must be caused by marijuana. This was enough to cause the town of El Paso to ban marijuana in 1915. But that was not, by any means, the first law against marijuana. And in fact, the first law had nothing to do with marijuana. It predates marijuana, and it had to do with cannabis indica. And there is a particular person who can be, who is accountable for this. Another gentleman from California, and I'm sorry that all of these things got tied when we dropped. Here he is. All right. The author of Cannabis Prohibition, Henry James Finger. From Santa Barbara. Author of California's anti-narcotics law. He's the one who in California in 1907, the year California adopted the D.C. Poisons and Pharmacy Act, started the war on drugs here against opium and cocaine at that time. But in 1911, this is before all of this this marijuana madness in El Paso, he writes a letter to the narcotics chief at Hamilton Wright at that time, saying, hey, there are these Hindus, East Asian immigrants in California, and they're using this cannabis stuff. And, it might spread to whites. Maybe we ought to make it illegal. And this is important because Henry Finger was, along with Hamilton Wright, one of the delegates to the U.S., one of the U.S. delegates to the International Conference on Narcotics at The Hague, which was originally intended to deal with opium and cocaine, but Finger himself urged at that conference that cannabis be included in the international treaties. In 1912, the U.S. delegation was on the record asking for cannabis prohibition. And let me point out that Hamilton Wright went along with Finger on the theory not that cannabis was a problem, didn't even talk about marijuana. All right, you recognize cannabis was not a problem, but once we get rid of this opium stuff, maybe the fiends will start using this instead. Good thing to prevent it from happening. All right, so to prevent marijuana from happening, they made it illegal. They tried to make it illegal, but they failed in The Hague. The Hague Conference wouldn't do it. They tried to put it in the U.S. Harrison Act in 1914, which was against opium and cocaine. It did not get into the Harrison Act. The patent medicine people opposed it successfully. However, it did get into a lot of state laws, including California. And in 1913, the State Board of Pharmacy, thanks to Henry James Finger, passed a outlawed cannabis indica. In fact, it didn't even restrict itself to medical cannabis. The law, and there is the origins of the war of marijuana, and it continues. And they even have bonfires where they bring in the marijuana and the opium and everything else and burn it up. This is before World War I even happens. And it wasn't just California. It was not California. Let's see. These all show. Here is a list of some of the early anti-cannabis laws. And I must say, I didn't mention Missouri actually outlawed hashish dens in 1889 when they were outlawing opium dens. They included hashish, so technically that's the first anti-cannabis law in the United States, but it didn't outlaw hashish itself. But in 1911, Massachusetts was the first state to adopt this law. Basically, their law said outlawed non-medical sales of cannabis indica. You could only use it as a medicine. You couldn't, and that was copied, as I say, by California, New York City. You see all these other states. 33 states had already outlawed marijuana before the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. So cannabis was actually made illegal before marijuana was even known in this country. And the lesson that I want drawn from all this, if I can, there goes another one on the floor, I'm so sorry. This is an obsolete technology, and I got tied to it because I was using these old newspaper clippings, where is the